What's a subtle sign that someone is mentally unstable, constantly needing to assert dominance over people in some way? It's often a sign of childhood neglect or bullying. There's this guy I work with that's like this, but in that way where he's very clearly never matured past 20 despite being 40. He gets off on making people uncomfortable and enjoys being a pest. He likes testing the boundaries. He's just a dick. I know a guy like this, and he's also a therapist. Goes without saying almost, I feel for his clients. I've worked with a lot of therapists and am surprised by how many of them, at least in my field, are like this. Most are great, but maybe like 1 in 5 are insecure AF and push boundaries like they're narcissists. My ex did this. I wouldn't have called him a narcissist per se, but he certainly thought he was smarter than I and weaponized his therapist profession to make me feel like my perfectly reasonable boundaries were avoidant behaviors, and wheedle his way into my mental health concerns. I can understand being drawn to your own bullshit in any facet of life, career especially, but when the irony doesn't strike you and humility doesn't prevent you from harming the vulnerable population you're supposed to help, how dare you spend any second doing so? Own your shit and at least don't spread it. While I know it comes from trauma, it's hard to deal with this kind of behavior. I've also had this experience with a friend and decided to let that relationship go. I tried too much, but it was in vain. Like it seemed impossible to help. No matter how you respond to this behavior, I think there's definitely space for both. This person is a dick and I need to keep my peace. And this person is a victim of their environmenting. My mum's like this to me, and I have seen how her family's like that to her. I used to feel bad for her for it, but now I know it's not my job to fix, and realistically, it never will be unless she puts in the effort. Disagreeing with them is treated as a personal attack, and heaven forbid you ever tell them no, or when you correct them nicely and they respond like it's a personal attack, like if they use the wrong word or misspell something. I still remember telling my mum that something was actually a myth, and her freaking out and screaming at me in the car. I don't even remember what it was, but I still remember every single time she started screaming over nothing. They majorly overreact to small annoyances. This is a big one. My family does this a lot, but nobody will admit to having anger issues. I agree that it could be just anger issues, but also that it could be other instabilities, more often like major depression or executive dysfunction disorders that make stresses that much harder to handle. It's really frustrating. Mine admit to having short tempers but don't seem to accept that they can do something about it. Instead, they think it's up to the rest of us to absorb their rage. This has always been an issue for me. After raising 3 kids on the spectrum, I've come to realize a lot of my issues are the autism. Interruption of an expected outcome is a big trigger, especially for my oldest daughter, who has a severe form. Some people are unwell. I agree with what you're saying, but some of us also have undiagnosed disabilities. See also ADHD and emotional reactivity. ADHD is a cursed disorder because I've had moments where other people who also have ADHD piss me off because our energy levels are never at the same pace. It's totally not their fault, and I internalize my anger, but it's so hard for my own overactive brain to keep up with another overactive brain. I have ADHD. The amount of times something small and insignificant pisses me off badly is insane, but I don't react to other things at all, especially around people. It's a very common effect, and I absolutely hate it. I let it out when I'm alone, usually with a lot of swearing. When I'm around people, I hold it in, but man, it's super hard because we feel emotions so strongly. I hate it. I can't get any help either because I have to be re-diagnosed as an adult to get help. But I'm over 25. I was kicked from the waitlist and can't be redded because I'm too old. I need help. I've been trying to get help my entire life, but I've just been told that I need to just be better when I'm trying my hardest already. I hate being me. I'm mad. The only help I got as a kid was being banned from sweet stuff and being told I was a bad kid. That's a shit situation, man. It eats me up how unfair life can be. The only way I stop myself from having existential crises every day is being grateful for the good things in my life and living life by the moment. Sounds cliche, but try to stay in the present instead of the past or future. You have to accept that life sucks sometimes, but it's beautiful too. Don't hate being you. I live with my mill and work part-time to take care of her. It's every 30 seconds. She needs to talk to me about nothing. I love her a lot, but it's constant. She can't stop bothering me about stuff that is not important. No exaggeration. She just wants me constantly to listen to her. I'll be making a sandwich, and the entire process is her talking about everything I'm doing. We have the other bread if you want it. How much mayo is left? Are you going to use mustard? We have ham and salami. Are you going to use turkey? Remember, we got lettuce? But the old lettuce is still good. Oh, please use the tomatoes. And the avocados are ripe. This was today, verbatim. I want to scream into a pillow, but feel like I'm crazy for how frustrating it is to be constantly bugged. She's happy. She just wants to talk. Being vindictive, veerily petty at a grown age. Are we thinking of the same person? How do you guys all know me? Someone who's really invested in parasocial relationships to the point that their own actual relationship suffers. Dear Slim, I wrote you, but you still ain't Callan. One I've noticed for certain types of instability, certainly not all, is that they're extra quick to make forced connections at the start of interacting with a new social group and are quick to escalate jokes to inappropriate topics, like faster and with less finesse than a standard extrovert would. I had a period of seeking new connections through local friend-finding groups, and zero to bestie behavior turned out to be an extremely reliable indicator of somebody being an exhausting pain in the ass. Zero to bestie also goes from bestie to nemesis real quick. From bestie to duck and cover. I've always kind of felt bad avoiding these people cause I'm wondering, do they just not have any friends, so me being nice to them is a huge deal? But then I think maybe this is why they don't have any friends. I want to keep people at a decent distance for a good period. I love having close friends, but I want to make sure I'm not embracing a ticking time bomb. This is me. I tend to lean toward getting way too personal and not knowing proper social boundaries for the amount of time I know someone. TBH, I prefer this. Might as well cut to the chase of who we are as people to see if we vibe or not. Weeds out people who aren't right for you. I think. Poor self-control. Overreacting to small amounts of stress or inconvenience. Subtle signs that usually means that someone might be struggling mentally. Check, 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 and check. Did I win? You did win, but at what cost? I'm glad that you phrased it this way, because mentally unstable tends to have an extra connotation that doesn't always apply for the mentally ill. As an example, I'm mentally ill, I struggle with depression and anxiety, but that doesn't mean that I'd ever take it out on anyone else. The chances of that are practically null. The chances of me taking my own life are not null though. They are low, but not zero. I have a term for a specific type of person. The disaster friend. It doesn't matter when you see them or how often you see them, but when you do, they never ask you how you're doing, and go on a long rant about everything going wrong with their life at the moment. They assume you know the context regardless of how long it's been since you've seen them. The rant generally includes people who haven't paid them back or jobs that fired them for no reason. They will likely mention some illegal thing their last boss did or how someone screwed them over in some way. It boils down to a complete lack of self-awareness. They're basically just free associating what's on their mind out loud. If you try to help, when things inevitably go wrong, they're going to have an excuse and ultimately find a way to make it your fault. You didn't tell me that if the job started at 8, I had to be there at 8. Kind of thing. They're constantly in some kind of crisis and miraculously always the victim of said crisis and never able to understand their own part in the situation. They are for the most part functional, so they don't appear to be mentally unstable, but the fact that they never have a moment of chill speaks to the instability under the hood. I call these people professional problem havers. Bonus points if they're moving every 6 months because they somehow manage to only get crazy roommates. They always go hard into every romantic relationship as well, drop you so many red flag hints talking about it, then immediately dismiss your concerns because this one is different. Inevitably, it ends in a complete disaster with loads of drama along the way. It's never their fault though. The person was just crazy. Bonus points when there's a guest appearance of the crazy ex of new partner too. Second, I have a friend who trauma or drama dumps all the time, can have a proper two-way conversation and is dismissive if I raise anything concerning me. She turns up late to organized meetings and always looks stressed out, completely self-absorbed, hijacks the conversation to bring it back to her dramas. Also always the victim, like you said. Sorry I'm late. My roommate didn't let the cat out and I had to drive 4 hours to get a case for my phone that was broken by my cousin's friend. And when I got home, the cat made a huge mess and I needed to get his medication too. It's mostly the result of not dealing with things until they're an emergency, not refilling a prescription until you're completely out, not paying a bill until it's overdue, not renewing your car's registration until you get pulled over, not addressing a health issue until it puts you in the hospital. Made me realize that some people are legitimately just living life on the defense with seemingly no concept of prevention. I fear that used to be me. I've gotten a lot better about it over the years. But in certain circumstances or around certain people, ITLL pop out again. I fear that used to be me. This sentence alone proves you are no longer this person. It's a lack of self-awareness that causes it. Add this to the very real stresses people have, and they just get caught up in their own storm without taking a step back to really look at what the real issue is or how they might have contributed to it. I very much still am that person. It's just a lot more tempered than it used to be. It's been a long process of soul-searching, prayer and reflective conversations with people I trust. But I'm getting there, constantly posting quotes on social media about how they're the victim. A variant of I'm never in the wrong. I'm someone very well familiarized with mental illness instability, and boy, oh boy, I find many of these comments amusing. I know people in real life who can be pretty neurotic and swear they don't need to seek help, to the point they avoid it like the plague. And on many occasions denial is itself a tell. Oh HHH, I see you've met my mother. Haha. Trauma dumping on people they just met or barely know. Yeah, I'm guilty of this. I don't have anything else to talk about other than my issues, so I just don't talk to people. As soon as I open my mouth, it just pours out of me. Constant drama and chaos. An inability to sit alone with your thoughts for any period of time without any distractions. If you're not mentally stable, it can be almost physically painful to reflect on your life and think critically about oneself. I find that a lot of workaholics are this way, because the cracks start to appear when they're not constantly busy. So it may seem like someone is well put together from the outside, but it's really a coping mechanism or a defense to not feel what they're avoiding dealing with. They run on adrenaline and cortisol, then burnout happens and the body and brain will force them to face their problems head on. This happened to me. I did indeed crack, and it was quite the experience. Me too. In retrospect, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. But holy fuck, was I in for a challenging 2-year recovery. I'm still barely clawing out of it. My dad is just like this and still works 60 hours a week at the age of 63. He is an almost always anxious, mean, gruff, controlling, emotionally abusive and narcissistic person, and has an inability to show affection and genuine love or good conversation with anyone. Even when I was born, he was working pretty much all that week. Money is the most important, of course, and making sure the car is clean. Puts on a false facade to the outside world, talks himself up all the time but is not as happy or as put together as he makes out. Always losing things, asking for help, complaining about how everything is carried out. Honestly, I won't go into it too much. Have had a lot of therapy myself for mental health problems for 20 years now, and he's a big part of the reason I'm struggling with my issues with self-love, relationships, confidence and trust issues in people. But he won't keep me down. It's interesting as the only time I've ever heard he was about to crack, recently at least, was when he had to have a CT scan and be alone with no distractions, work, talking, people or anything he could control or do. And he told my mum later that day he wanted to break out and nearly told them to let him out. Is that because he finally had all the emotions and reality of himself and his life choices all flood in? Everything is personal. It's malicious, it's meant. Not a coincidence or someone having a bad day. They hate you. They're judging you. They see weakness. The faces at the bus windows are hostile. When someone can't regulate their emotions, like tiny setbacks or issues cause huge, explosive reactions, or just quick to violence, that can't just exist on their own for themselves. They need constant attention, bad or good. I have a friend that has dementia. As the disease progressed, she became more childlike. Each day I am saying goodbye to a friend. Or, this is my dad. He started doing increasingly bizarre things and rationalizing it away. Eventually, he could no longer rationalize it and would get inappropriately angry or act in ways that were inappropriate toward what the situation called for. I love him so much, and I miss him so much. Giving money to millionaire influencers, signing up to a marathon. If you know a really depressed person, check in on them. If all of the sudden they seem really happy, while yes, something may be making them happy more than usual, please know. It's a telltale sign that they are planning on ending their life. They see a light finally that only they can see. It's not a good light. Get them help ASAP. My friend lost her younger brother to suicide. She told me that he told his relatives that he wanted to be buried near his grandmother. That was a sign and they didn't even notice it. Complete lack of empathy. Had a person from the dog park I go to tell me that she's taking an online course so she can talk to dolphins and whales. We live in Colorado. Little things set them off. They have periodic outbursts and meltdowns after stonewalling you several times. Seriously, something is going on there. It is though they live in hiding. Overprotective their inner selves and hiding all vulnerabilities. I had a family member do that, and I did not feel emotionally safe around him. I was walking on eggshells all the time. I suggested that he go for help, and that did him in. Total meltdown after, and I was scared. They always need to get the last word in. That is 99 of people on this platform, me included. Wait, maybe there's SMTG there. Having unpredictable moods and reactions to mundane, everyday things. Okay, it's normal to drink a lot in your late teens, early 20s, but it can also be a sign of something serious. Alcoholism is a monster in itself, but is always comorbid with other disorders like depression, social anxiety, and some personality disorders. Check in if you have a friend that always needs to drink around others. Be kind and encouraging if they're sober for once, not being able to apologize when they are wrong, staring at nothing for extended periods of time. I have CPTSD along with several other mental illnesses. The dissociation is real. I'm also super hypervigilant. I really can't function in crowds. I'm reading micro expressions, body language, and looking for exit areas at all times. I know I'm miserable to be around. I just stay at home with my little dog. My best friend of 20 years developed schizophrenia at age 27. She was always an oddball. Didn't GAF what people thought and laughed way too loud at her own jokes, but something shifted when she started laughing in a snarky way to herself, like someone was delivering her one-liners that only she could hear. Then one day, she started responding to the voices, delivering those one-liners, and eventually doing what they said. Like, drive down the freeway at 90 miles an hour doing whippets. She was 5150 soon after. It's been 10 years and she's probably gone to mental illness forever. Hi, another schizophrenic here. I did exactly the same as my illness developed. And yeah, both me and your friend will always have it. But that doesn't make us write-offs. We're still the original person, just a bit lost in our own heads. Both need a bit of extra help and medication to get by in life. I was unstable AF 15 years ago. I'm doing okay now. It's not easy, but it's okay. Schizophrenia gives you like a Stockholm Syndrome experience. You get used to the daily noise and nonsense of it. You learn to adapt. Like your own little cult. I hope your friend is on a road to a livable life. I was an absolute train wreck 15 years ago, but things are okay now. And I hope this makes you feel better too, because your last sentence has such sadness to it. Schizophrenia can't be cured, but it can be treated. So yeah, I really hope your friend has gotten the help over the last 10 years to give her a life she can cope with. Fellow schizophrenic here. The line "gone to mental illness forever" almost made me cry. Same. Probably because you and I have both lost friends to something we didn't want nor could control. When it first rears its head, hope you're having an okay time of it too. Things can't always be great and well, few times when it's bad. But okay is just okay. It's enough. Okay is manageable. Lol. Much love, X. I'm so glad you've been able to get the help you need and to live a life in the face of an illness with such a strong bias against it. Proud of you and wishing you all the best. What does 5150D mean? It's a forced 72 hours psychiatric hold, calling all the leaders of various departments to one place to talk about warrior ethos. Lying. Constantly lying for no reason whatsoever. They publicly asked the nation to stop attacking pedophiles. Arrested development. When someone obviously lacks the understanding and/or maturity to facilitate relationships, it typically looks like person A really wants to hang out with person B, but person B has work in the morning and needs to go to bed early. Person A will take this as a personal attack and retaliate with childlike actions like the silent treatment or passive-aggressive behavior. Relationships are typically one-sided, where person A needs the majority of your attention while person B receives almost none. They have no relationships with friends longer than 5 years, having an unstable adult child. I have noticed relationships last a year, maybe 2, most end after 6 months. Odd perspective, and kind of a self-call out. Finger nails. You asked for subtle, and I am going very subtle. At my lowest, my fingernails were very fragile, as I wasn't taking care of myself. They would break in weird angles, and I didn't have the energy to cut them. Now every time I see someone with frayed and soft nails, or very jagged nails that could easily accidentally scratch them, I tend to assume they are not in a good place mentally, and it has checked out nearly 100. If the time, long, rambling texts with strings of words that don't go together or make the slightest bit of sense, that's not very subtle, haha. Constant drama, live for chaos, victim mentality. Lack of self-awareness and accountability, taking constructive criticism as a personal attack, thinking they're not in the wrong when disrespecting someone, lots of trauma dumping and always having something negative to say about people they choose to keep close, and not respecting boundaries. They can't make a decision. A constant dead-eyed stare, when their reactions are completely out of proportion to what's actually happening, like going 0 to 100 over nothing. Delusional thinking. Few years ago, my brother was saying very impressive stuff. He said stuff like he developed some fancy computer programs. He pulled someone out of a burning car in the FWI, etc. I believed him. As time went by, he created an airplane. He got a degree in chemical engineering along with business degree. FBI was recording his phone conversations. Then it got worse. He started smelling really bad. He shaved his head and grew an ugly mohawk. He got ketamine treatment and totally lost his soul. I no longer recognize him. His eyes look evil. And that's not the wonderful protective brother I knew when we were young. It's like some devil possessed his body and mind. He has been dead for a few years now, even though he is still breathing. Supporting obviously terrible people, doing obviously terrible things because you cannot admit you were wrong. Most of these comments are not subtle signs, but blatant red flags. I think I read one comment stating, hurts animals, like come on and stain. This is a blatant red flag that this person is mentally unstable, not subtle whatsoever. Who sits there and responds to someone torturing an animal like, I think Bob might not be okay. Subtle signs include social isolation, lack of hygiene, withdrawal from responsibilities such as school or work, regularly making excuses to not show up when they have made plans, and financial instability or impulse control. Mentally unstable does not always mean narcissistic or sociopathic, but it can include depression, suicidal thoughts, substance abuse, and conditions such as bipolar or schizophrenia. If you know someone going through a tough time, try reaching out. While not wanting to go there, but I have seen animal lovers treat animals worse than normal people do. Go behind the scenes at a dog show and tell me how many of these people are real animal lovers. They only get their facts from YouTube. It'd say social media in general. And TikTok. Good God. I find this particularly hard when it's being delivered as jokes. I don't mean actual dark jokes between mates or people, you know. Get it? It's when it's with strangers, is inappropriate, and the person keeps going even when it's clearly awkward, triggering for people around them. Walking into a convenience store on acid and eating things off shelves. Car surfing. Lighting a Roman candle in a bar and firing it off. Taunting random people into fights because things are too quiet or boring. I've got more examples. He's more stable now. Bro, those are like massive red fucking signals. Do you know what subtle means? Someone who always has to one-up you. I can't stand that. Having a baby voice as a grown adult. They use roundabout and harmful methods to deal with problems that can be easily solved with honest, direct communication. Declaring oneself a stable genius, posting I slop as if it was real. Is it crying? Is it me? Certain kinds of jokes. Much truth is said in jest. Constantly threatening self-harm or suicide, especially if they're not getting what they want. Volatile and erratic emotions, usually a sign of emotional negligence growing up. The way they take pleasure in seeing someone else upset, in pain, suffering. They wear orange makeup and are unable to form words into coherent sentences and have an overinflated sense of their own self-importance. They also cannot accept any criticism. Would add, they wear a slightly different shade of makeup on their hand. It's so weird that our president is mentally ill and so many people thought it would be a good idea to give him power, which he will never transfer peacefully. BTW. They date Scooter Brown, always running out of money and having no savings despite being on a high income. My ex had BPD and would burn all her money in manic episodes. But to people around her, she just seemed to be bad with money. I wouldn't say most of these signs are subtle. Like overreactions are not a subtle sign because it wouldn't be something you overlook. Subtle signs of mental instability include: has an off-putting and uncomfortable dark sense of humor, makes light jokes about being a jealous or dramatic person, smiles after deceiving others, shows subtle signs of smiling or glee in their eyes when others are suffering, can explain to you in a clear manner why they have an issue with someone, even if you ask them follow-up questions, are harsh on friends or family, but kind to strangers, views a no as the beginning of a negotiation, doesn't respect silence or a non-answer as a boundary when it comes to texting or phone calls, plans apologies and reconciliation after conflict around major holidays. Their social media feed and recommendations are frequently rage bait, toxic jokes, and edgelord humor. Scripts all their talking points when it comes to confrontation. Consistently sympathizes and normalizes the behavior of violent offenders, psychopaths, and other highly volatile individuals. If their reactions don't match what's going on, getting super angry over something small or acting way too happy during serious stuff, you might also notice they switch moods fast, talk in circles and seem disconnected from what's real most of the time. Inability to hold down a job. They consistently get fired for cause no call no show, poor quality work despite repeated training, continuing harassment of co-workers despite HR intervention within a year or so, but it is never their fault. It was always because of unreasonable expectations. Poor management or harassment once can happen to anybody. But if it is happening with every job, they have some mental issues that need therapy medication and possibly inpatient time. They cannot speak in complete and coherent sentences, and will start sentences in the middle. That's what my mum does anyway. It's called disordered speech. It happens mostly due to mental disorders like ADHD and things like dementia. Won't shut up about invading Greenland. Constantly giving to other people in order for approval and to be liked, whether that be through affirmations, gifts, or acts of service. Then putting themselves down constantly to a point of you wanting recoil, because the juxtaposition of how positive they are towards you and negative to themselves is confusing. Always asking why. When they hear a no, they can't comprehend no as a complete sentence and they aren't entitled to other people's reasons. Genuinely asking a good faith question here. I struggle with social contexts. Is there an appropriate time to indicate I fully accept their no and respect their boundary, but I'm curious about the reason behind it? Like if I asked a friend to an event or something and they said no, wouldn't it be social etiquette to give a reason, even a fake one, why they couldn't go in order to preserve the relationship? If someone just said no, I would respect that and not pester, but I would be confused and curious if I did something that would have created distance in the relationship. Asking why would be me basically saying, hey, are we good? Willing to date me? It is said every time you get on a bus, there is one crazy person, but every time I get on the bus, I never see any. Having an obsession with people that they hate. If they are in canon, they theorize about everyone's motive. No matter how minor a role someone plays in their life, there's a theory about how that person is somehow working against them or plotting something nefarious. In general, I seem to encounter more and more of these people lately. ChatGoat told me if they're doing that, it's because they're anxious and trying to make sense out of a life where they feel they have no safety net. Makes sense. Helped me figure out a few people I love who do that. Impulse buying small to very expensive things, even if they cannot afford it, then adding said items into the pile of other useless things bought. They think everyone else is wrong and they're right. IDK. Sometimes someone has to be a genius. Statistically, most people are average. They struggle to understand the difference between genius and instability because of their incredible averageness. Of course, being a genius is unstable in their eyes because they wouldn't have the ability to stabilize it and can't comprehend what they can't comprehend. That genius is likely usually right, and average people lean more towards socially acceptable opinions rather than correct ones. Historically, these people led to massive medical, scientific, and even artistic breakthroughs, though. And often they were stubborn assholes if you believe what was recorded in history. Like the doctor who noticed midwives delivering babies achieved a 50 higher survival rate for the mother and the baby than when the male doctors delivered. And then noticed that only one of these groups used soap. He campaigned all the doctors in the hospital used soap PRE surgery. The results were conclusive. Many lives were saved. But since they didn't know what bacteria was hundreds of years ago, all he could say was, I decay, but it works, right? So you need to change. The doctors were fucking furious. He fought back. They accused him of bullshittery and felt their hygiene and practices were personally attacked. He fought back. In the end, the dude got thrown into an asylum and died there because washing away demons from your hands PRE surgery was not a great look and was how average people painted him. We know what happened next. You can find soap in your house right now. I hope, if you're at least the good kind of average. I'm not saying most people who have to be right all the time are geniuses. Like myself, for instance, I'm always right. But I am saying that unlike a lot of the comments here, yours has wiggle room for a micro % of people to actually be a superior human being where stability is irrelevant, as they operate on a whole other level beyond our silly little labels and judgments.